I'm going to let myself be a little toxic this video. I hope you guys are okay with that. So I wanted to go ahead and justify a couple of opinions of mine real quick. And also, there's a particular comment I want to respond to because, well, I don't entirely agree with the methodology of the comment. And also, there's an interesting twist to this one that I think we need to talk about. The first thing I want to say is I think it's probably time that most of us just don't play Sol Ring in bracket 2 or 3 decks. Like, obviously, you do what you want to do. You play the cards you want to play. I'm not going to stop you if you like playing with power. That's entirely fine. But yeah, personally, the more games that I've played of Commander, the more I have found that a Sol Ring lets them get out of hand, and then it becomes a game where everybody is just kind of dogpiling on the one person. And I understand the arguments for it. It's very powerful early ramp, and there are some people that feel like their decks really need the boost that Sol Ring provides. This was also the argument given for Mana Crypt by a lot of players who defended it even in green decks, and that confused me then, but I digress. I understand it also has universal utility. Being able to be put in any deck, regardless of color, is a huge thing, and it is a staple of the format. It is one of the most commonly referred to cards in the entire game. I don't think that this is an argument for its inclusion, though. It's inarguable that Pot of Greed is one of the most iconic cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that card has been banned for like 2 decades. I think that it's perfectly reasonable for a card to just be accepted as powerful as other cards that have been banned for similar reasons, and therefore is perfectly fine being taken away. Now, this is not to say that I don't think Sol Ring needs to exist in Commander at all. I think that at the very least making it a game changer along with the other game changers will at least showcase what the card is and be a lot more, I think it'll be a lot more reasonable for players to say, oh, I get it. Really fast mana gets banned, and really fast mana that isn't as efficient, say it doesn't cost 0, is a game changer because of the warping effect it has on the game. Not putting Sol Ring in the game changers list to me feels like a very, very strange thing, because inarguably being 2 turns ahead of all of your opponents on mana for the low cost of using your turn 1 play is really, really strong. And I understand that some people may have decks with really large mana sinks and want to run Sol Ring in those too, but again, I just think it should just be a game changer. But that said, there are some arguments against it that I want to propose to you. The first one is it kind of lacks any and all synergy in all but the most specifically ring-oriented decks. Like, you want to make a Sauron deck and throw the Sol Ring in there because it has the 1 ring on it, go right ahead. That is on theme. That is perfectly fine. And again, you can play what cards you want to play in your deck. I'm never going to stop you from doing it. However, when I see that every single deck must have an Arcane Signet, must have a Sol Ring, eventually I start asking myself, what's the real flavor of most of these decks? How many auto-include cards can we put into decks before we just kind of have decks that are only those auto-include cards or are deliberately underpowered? Like, Rhystic Study is one of those auto-include cards. I think Rhystic Study should be in every single blue deck that is trying to be a high-powered deck. I see no argument for not running the strongest draw spell in all of Commander. But that does create a huge problem if you like having a casual format where players get to express themselves. Now, luckily, Rhystic Study is on the Game Changers list, and so it is a signpost, and that is kind of a self-correcting problem. Having the card be a game changer means that CEDH players, for instance, get to play with it all they want, and I mean, there's arguments for that card being taken out of CDH right now because of the issues it's causing in there, but you understand my point. The card gets to be ran by the decks at the highest level that want to play non-casual Magic, and people who want to sit down and just play kitchen table Commander, which is, I think, what most of us really are playing, all the time, for the most part, they don't have to deal with the card. And with the Game Changers list, there's at least a signpost pointing to the card saying, hey, this is the kind of thing we don't like seeing in lower-powered games. And that's entirely fine. I just think Sol Ring should be there as well. Also, it's just kind of, for me personally, it's just kind of boring. When I see a game line for the 15 billionth time, and it's like a 1-2 step, oh no, I'm super ahead, or oh no, I win thing, I tend to not be a super big fan of those game lines. As an example, this thing was just announced recently, Vivi or Natir. And I like Final Fantasy IX. I like Vivi's story. I was excited to see what they would do with Vivi, but Vivi ends up just being a generic, is it spell slinger commander? And I don't know, something about that just rubs me the wrong way. It is cast a non-creature spell, deal 1 damage to every opponent. It's the electrostatic field effect, okay? And he's got an infinite mana ability, which makes him just a storm commander. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like that's the absolute most boring you could have made. And is it Spellslinger Commander? He doesn't do much other than be a storm commander, and if you've played Final Fantasy IX, there's more things than just cast the big spell that mages can do in basically every Final Fantasy game. But I think this leads me to my other issue with Commander. As much as I do love the format and have developed a deep love for the format, I'm not a big fan of infinite combos. And when I say infinite combos, I am meaning 2-card infinite combos. Cards that go together, and once they have gone together, that's it. The game is over, or the game is a turn cycle away from being over. Like, obviously, one of the poster childs for this is the Sanguine Bond Exquisite Blood combo. And while, yes, technically combos like this do take a lot of mana over the course of a couple turns sometimes, it's just kind of boring to see one half of the combo and going, oh shit, that's really cool, look at all the neat things you can do with it, and then all of those interesting conversations go out the window when the other half of the infinite combo comes out, and oh, your mechanic is I win button. Okay, that's kind of boring, but sure. It's the same reason that I'm not a big fan of these guys right here. I really don't like tutors. You've probably noticed that for the most part, in any deck I build, $15 or otherwise, I don't run tutors. And the reason is, it's the same issue I have with Sol Ring, 2-card infinite combos, etc. These are cards that, when you play them, they should be infinite potential. Vampiric Tutor should be any number of cards in your deck, anything possible. The sky's the limit, but the reality is, no, the sky's not the limit when you play Vampiric Tutor. It's just whatever the best spell in your deck is at the time, which usually is just going to be a win con, you know, like that Exquisite Blood. You play the tutor, it's going to yank you a win con, and that's going to be it. The most infuriating thing in the world is watching somebody who knows they have 2-card infinites in their deck, and they go and tutor, and it's a lose-lose, right? Because either they tutor for the win con, and the game's over, and you scoop up and you play another one, and you need to eliminate that player first so that they don't get to the 2-card infinite again, which is not a fun play pattern to play, where you're having to metagame one player out of the game in order for everybody else to play a game of Commander. But there's also the other issue that when you are playing those tutors, if you're not getting the win con, but your deck has the win con, then you're deliberately playing with your food, prolonging the game way past its natural endpoint. It's like, I have a friend who has an elf deck with a Staff of Domination infinite combo in it, and I'm not upset at him for having the combo in the deck. What upsets me is when you've got the Priest of Titania and the Staff of Domination, and you choose not to do the thing that ends the game. Please, dear God, if the game is able to end, don't just make us sit here forever and watch you dirtle through the deck, card by card, piece by piece. Just present the line and let it be over so we can scoop up and go into another game. I'm in the two minds where I don't like the instant wins, but if you have the instant win, just use the dang thing so that we can go to another game and continue having fun, because this game is technically already over. And if you don't do it, then I'm willing to scoop up and just go to another table, which is a thing that anybody who doesn't like their opponent's play patterns can do in a game of Commander. But again, This is not to say that I'm upset at an opponent for running a 2-card Infinite Combo, or an opponent for running a Tutor, or an opponent for running a Soul Ring. I don't like the play patterns that emerge from those cards, so I personally do not run them at all. If my opponents want to play those cards in games with me, that's entirely fine. I may not like the play patterns of Heuristic Study or Vampiric Tutor, but if you want to play them, then I will just do what I can to play around them. I'll hold up the counterspell for the thing that you tutored for, or I'll make sure that everybody pays the 1 for the Heuristic Study. I'll do what I can to make sure that the game of Magic is still fun for everybody at the table so that we can play. But that's my first set of conversations that I wanted to have in this video. The second one is about the YouTube comment section, and there's a lot of comments in here that have been interesting to me. One of them is comments correcting me on rulings, and honestly, every one of you that do this, thank you so freaking much. I cannot tell you how often I get rulings wrong in this game because the Magic rules are not intuitive. They really aren't. It has a giant comprehensive rulebook for a reason. It's the fact that the rules are not intuitive at all. So I appreciate it. Anytime I get a ruling wrong, when you guys check me on that, it gives me a chance to go back and edit that part of the video so that I'm not misguiding somebody, and I really, really am happy about that. Another kind of comment that I get every now and again that I do appreciate the feeling behind, but I don't agree with the method, is when somebody says that I shouldn't be gassing up Wizards of the Coast, I should be just calling out the company for their anti-consumer practices and all of that, and I understand where you're coming from. I do. I really do. But understand where I'm coming from. I engage personally with this game a lot. And when I say buy product, with very few exceptions, I usually am saying pick up singles from a local game store or from an online vendor that has your local game store listed in it, like a TCG Player or something. I would rather the money that you spend on this game, if you choose to spend money on this game, I know people can proxy, I would rather you spend that supporting your local game store. 110%. It's a better experience for you. It's a better way for that money to get invested for everybody. And Wizards, quite frankly, has been doing lots of things that I disagree with. The pricing on Secret Lair, the existence of Secret Lair, the pricing of the Final Fantasy set and the precons for it, the Modern Horizons precons, the 30th anniversary for Magic. There's all kinds of things this company has done that are anti-consumer that I am not a fan of. And usually I do talk about that stuff spattered around my other content, but it is not the focus of my content. The focus of my content is creating budget decks for other players. I find that to be very fun. And as somebody who doesn't like proxying cards, that is a far more fun endeavor for me than, well, anything else. Now, as for why I don't like proxying cards, again, I hold the same opinion on proxying as I do with Soul Ring and Exquisite Blood and all the other stuff. If you want to proxy cards in your deck, by all means, go ahead. I don't think there's anything wrong with proxying cards for Magic. But the reason I don't like proxying cards is I grew up poor. I grew up not being able to afford card games at all. I still played them, but I could never play at a reasonably competitive level. I didn't have the money to. I could get a couple starter decks for a game, and that would be that. I think it's one of the reasons I loved starting new card games, like the Yu Hakusho card game when that came out, or Duel Masters, anything like that, because whenever you and your friends pick up your first starter decks for the first time, that's the most evenly balanced game y'all are ever going to have. The further and further you get into the game, the person with the most money is going to be the person who's able to afford more stuff. And when you're a kid, you have no control over that money. So for me, I like not proxying cards because I like owning my cards. It's a part of my childhood that I barely got to mess with. I didn't get to own a lot of cards. I got to pick up cards every once in a while, and we didn't have these robust online shops like TCG Player back then, so you really kind of had to rely on, what was it, Troll and Toad was probably the best thing you had access to outside of your local LGS, and prices were not something that a kid with a kid's allowance were always going to be able to afford in general. So for me, I like owning my cards because I am in a position now where I can own my cards. So I do a lot of content for people like me who want to be able to play Magic at a higher level, even in Commander, but also would really like to own their cardboard, which leads me to another topic. Well, this one's actually a comment, and we're going to read through it. I've censored the person's name so that they don't get dogpiled or anything in any comment section, but I do want to make sure that I do not strawman this person's argument. Their first comment on a video that I did about starting the game of Magic the Gathering said, there is no deck that is very powerful for $15, unless you're playing against other decks of a similar budget. And to that, I disagree. I have taken my $15 decks to local tournaments, and I have played with them literally across the country. I have traveled to Boston and played with them. I have traveled to Philadelphia and played with them. I've traveled to Florida, obviously all around Atlanta, because that is where I am based. And I've done so in Maryland as well. Like, I have gone to several states, Alabama too, playing my $15 decks. So this is an interesting take for me. And then they say that the actual answer is to proxy cards, which I refer to what I said before. It's not on this person for not knowing that that is my stance, but I personally don't like proxying cards. And I don't make content for people who like to proxy cards. If you like to proxy cards, then you just go watch, say, I guess the professor's videos on Magic, where before he made budget commanders with the help of the community, he made decks that just like had the Moxen and stuff in them, as if everybody had those on hand, or I guess they planned on proxying them. Again, not the audience that I am aiming towards. I am aiming towards people who have a stricter budget and still like owning the stuff that they play with personally. Then he says, he also fails to mention that all these $15 decks are made of singles that will have to be bought, likely online, to get them all, and the shipping for all the cards will be more expensive than the entire deck by the end. So I want to go ahead and answer that one. I've actually mentioned in a handful of videos that no, that is a problem, but the answer to that is, ironically, to pick up a couple more $15 decks. Here, let me show you just a transaction that I had that did technically make the decks a little above $20 each, but here, it'll make sense in just a second. So here is an order that I did on TCG Player. It's part of an order. There's actually 31 parts to this order, but you can see a lot of the cards that I picked up for a couple of the Commander decks that I've made here on this channel. I did an order for my Jasmine deck, an order for my Shazara deck, which is not out yet. The video will be out soon, and an order for another one of my decks. I can't remember which one it was, but it will be coming. It's a video that's already out. Oh, sorry, I know which one. It's Lord Xander. It's my Lord Xander deck. So you can see in here that all the cards, 14 cents, 8 cents, 32 cents, 9 cents, you can see the prices for everything here. And I'm going to stop scrolling after a bit because I don't want it to hit personal information. So those are the prices for everything when you order on TCG Player. However, there is a problem, and you did note the problem correctly. There is an issue, and it's this one right here, trying to cut off as much information as I can. Standard delivery, $3.99. So it adds $4 to the order, but there's 31 orders here. So some of these with higher cost shipping, just kind of not really that great, and that does create a problem when you are ordering a $15 deck. I've placed a $15 deck in my TCG Player cart and had this happen. So here we have the Swarmlord deck that I just did a video for. If I said I want to buy the deck and I want to do it from TCG Player, let's go ahead and put that in, and we're not going to knock the basic lands out because it's not going to change a whole lot for this, but if we go into the order, and we even accept heavily played and damaged items, we add these to cart, then yes, we're going to end up with this much. Holy shit. $125 for what is effectively $20 in cardboard. Now, that is insane, and nobody should ever be paying that. But TCG Player does have the optimize cart button, which is the first thing that you should be doing. So you optimize your cart and you see if you can get a lower price point for those 100 cards. You shouldn't be buying the basic lands. Chances are you already have those somewhere. But boom, this has knocked the price down to $50. But if I choose not to keep the current printings, and I go into my advanced rules and I tell it that I'm actually okay with any condition card, let's optimize this again and see if we can drop that price a little bit further. And there is a specific thing that I want to take note of when we are optimizing this. Maybe we'll get the price down a bit, maybe we won't. I'm doing this in real time. Okay, so dropping the price, we got the price knocked down $5 more over here. This verified sellers one looks to be broken and busted, so we're ignoring that. However, if you take a look at the any seller, we've dropped the price of the deck from $15 or $16.47 to $11.65. That is interesting. That's actually a huge drop. So what can you do when you are ordering a $15 deck so that you can actually get the benefit of this price without getting hurt too much from this price right here, okay? So technically, I've optimized everything again, but there are a couple things that we need to note. You'll notice there's several more items in here now than there were before, and we've got the shipping to be about the same here. So what did I do? Well, I added a couple more $15 decks. I added my Shesra Death's Whisper deck. I added my Eshki Dragon Claw deck in here as well. And by adding those extra decks into here, I've kept the shipping price about the same, but I've added more decks in. If you keep adding in decks this way, picking up more than one $15 deck, then you're going to end up spending a lot less money overall. If you are picking up a lot of cards budget, there's this phenomenon that happens. Stores like, say, Super Games here in Georgia that have all of their bulk categorized and placed online, there don't tend to be that many of those stores around. So whenever you are trying to get $15 decks that have a lot of bulk chaff that are being used to create a stronger deck, those cards are not going to be at certain stores. They will, however, be at those stores that generally have those bulk cards. And if they have some of that bulk categorized, they usually have all of that bulk categorized. To take advantage of this, you need to make sure that you are only paying shipping once from that store. And it's kind of funny because mentioning that Super Games is one of the stores that I've gone to pick up bulk stuff, they actually are noted here. They are one of the people who I am getting cards from in this order. But this means that any of these stores that have some of your bulk, like Nostalgic Nerdabilia here, they have some of your bulk, they probably have a lot of your bulk. A lot of the bulk that is going to be used across multiple decks. So you end up spending money on a lot of that bulk, 13 cents, 9 cents per card, but only paying that shipping once. By increasing the amount of decks that you are purchasing, you are not paying that much more in shipping, usually only about $5 more, but you are getting 3 playable decks, 4 playable decks, 5 playable decks, and several of these decks do contain different staples that you will need across other decks, especially if you're going to continue playing at a budget level. Sakura Tribe Elder, Shriekmaw, Path of Discovery, Overseer of the Damned, these are all cards that have lots of utility across multiple decks, especially cards like this Obnixilis Reignited here, Moldavine Reclamation, Liliana Death's Majesty, cards that have received lots of reprints, and stores just kind of have them sitting in bulk. So while yes, I agree that the shipping can be more expensive than the entire deck, I have mentioned in other videos that the way you get around that is by picking up a handful of other decks. But let's continue. I did ask this person what their actual issue is, because they seemed kind of upset, and they said that you're motivating players to build objectively bad $15 decks as opposed to motivating them to proxy cards if they're on a budget. Unless everybody at the table is coming into the game with an ultra budget deck, a $15 deck is going to get absolutely annihilated. Again, not in my experience. In my experience, having played the decks that I have built and brought them to tables of people playing their fully powered decks, albeit not CEDH, because most of the people in my playgroup don't own a CEDH deck. We're not really big on that format. I think only 3 people in my playgroup have even touched the format at all, and that's me, Biminem, and Gale. So when I hear from somebody who has not played with the decks that I have built, that I have brought to tournaments across the country and played with, well, stores across the country. I've only really played in 2 tournaments specifically here. There's a repeating Saturday tournament where I live, and then there is another one at another store that I have done as well. But that means that I have a wide variety of data for my $15 decks, and I am confident playing these at conventions with people. I am confident playing these at stores across the country without having to ask people to power down their decks. I've been doing so quite literally for the past 2 years. So when I hear that unless everybody is playing at the same level, those decks will get annihilated, I disagree, because I have that experience. I built them, I played them, I tested them, I know what my decks can do. And not every deck I make is powerful enough to go up against every other casual deck, but no deck in Magic the Gathering is. So when you say, this will lead a new player away from Magic, not towards it, I kind of disagree. I think when a new player comes into Magic and realizes that they can get away with playing a budget deck and still keep up with some of their friends, that's one of the more inviting things about this game. It's one of the reasons competitive Pokemon is as inviting as it is compared to, say, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Or competitive Magic the Gathering. And then there is this much larger comment, which I want to address in a handful of ways. But this is additionally with all the shipping fees associated with buying a full set of 100 cards, and that's what would likely have to be done to get your exact same deck list. Again, you don't have to play my exact same deck list. You can play, like, if you can't find a Rampant Growth at your store, but you can find a Nature's Lore, play a Nature's Lore. It would likely be cheaper to just buy a precon, if not cheaper, very similar in price. And to that, I do agree. Unless you are picking up multiple $15 decks at once, yes, this is, in fact, one of the problems with picking up stuff from online retailers who all have individual shipping fees. Then he says that precons are the better starting point, as you can buy them locally, ready to play out of the box, come with Magic the Gathering staples that will be important to know, and have at least a decent amount of synergy. To this, I actually agree, which is where we are going to come to the twist in this particular video. Furthermore, many people buy precons from their LGS, which is a much better experience for a new player rather than the soulless experience of buying online. For those that don't want to do that, precons can be bought at, like, Target. I just want you giving the best advice to new players. Motivating them to build $15 decks isn't it. So, first of all, if you want the best advice for new players to go out there, then my first response would be, you can make your own video, giving people whatever advice you think is the best advice. But for the twist, this is a comment on a YouTube short. And in that YouTube short, which is this one right here, you can click on this button right here, which will take you to the video that the footage from the YouTube short is sourced from. And in this video, when I say how to get started, so when we actually go to my video that, again, the YouTube short points to, and you could have just clicked on to get the context for the entire short, affordable, we can buy the deck on TCG Player, and then it should cost $15.16, right? And then we go to the optimizer, and $182. Ha! That's not actually the amount that I was trying to spend for that deck! It's almost like if you had looked at the video that short is sourced from, and which you could have done by just clicking on the link that the YouTube short has on it for a reason. When I have a YouTube short that is attached to a video, I will generally attach the YouTube short to the video so you can see it. It's a thing you do when you're a YouTuber and you want people to see more of your content. You have some of your content lightning rod to the other content so that people can see it. And it's almost like I say this in the video. Those $15 decks, as powerful as many of them can be, that's something you do after you're already a little established in the game. After you've already touched the water, figured out if you like it, because I'm going to be honest,
even when buying those physical decks for myself, what I've had to do is buy 3 to 4 decks at a time and then hit optimize. By getting 3 to 4 decks at a time and removing the basic lands from those decks, I've gotten it to where I'm able to purchase a bunch of them for about $12 or $13 each, and then the shipping cost doesn't end up being more than the $20-ish, and paying $20 to ship 4 decks versus paying $20 to ship 1 deck, you see what I mean? Like, it's going to be better to do one, or it's going to be better to put a lot of them in a cart as opposed to many of them.
So I already address this concern personally. I've addressed this entirely, and in that video, when talking about what to do to protect your deck, I actually go over, hey, you're going to get into Commander, you probably want to be able to put your deck in something like a rigid toolbox. It's going to be cheaper than buying a lot of individual boxes. That's a thing you can do. There are cheap ways to get lots of dice if you want. That's something that you can do. And, oh looky, if I put myself a little more forward in the video, what am I talking about? Precons. I begin talking about precons. The exact thing that you wanted me to do in the first place. It is almost like I actually did exactly what you asked in the video itself. But instead, we got into a fight in the YouTube comment sections, which is not the greatest thing in the world. And I'm not saying this to dance all over this conversation and go, haha, I'm right, neener. This is more of just a conversation on general internet etiquette. A lot of times we end up talking past each other without realizing that we've already addressed each other's concerns, just not in the way that we've expected. Now, for my part, in that conversation, I mostly sat around defending my $15 decks because these are things that I've put a lot of time and passion into. And when somebody tells me that thing is shit, and I, have taken them around the country and played them in multiple shops around the country and have not had the experience of them being shit, I'm gonna get a little defensive. But over and above that, when I find that the crux of the argument is not the power of the $15 decks, the crux of the argument is you're giving bad advice to new players, but the video that it's sourced from actually gives the exact advice that you want to give, we're just talking past each other now. Now both of us are upset and angry for no real reason because we already agree with one another. And that's something that I think, not just in Magic, but in a lot of nerd circles in general, we kind of have a problem with. Like, I had a conversation with a friend of mine at the card shop about the bracket system, and they said when they look at a deck, everything's a 4. Every deck's a 4. And I said, so even a precon, that's a 4? And he goes, well, I can upgrade some precons and get them to that level. I'm like, okay, but what does an upgraded precon look like? Are we talking swapping out 5 cards? Are we talking out swapping 37 cards? Like, what's an upgraded precon to you compared to, like, just building your own deck? Like, at what point is this Ship of Theseus a different thing? Moreover, do you have a coherent definition for what you think a bracket 3 deck or a bracket 4 deck is? So I open up my box and I point to a couple of the decks that I have saying, hey, I've got Savra. She's most certainly a bracket 4 deck. She can even punch up to some CEDH decks. I'm okay playing her in most situations. She's by far my strongest deck because she's a great control deck. Whereas if you look at a deck like my Ruby deck, that's a level 3 deck that is punching up to 4. It is a deck that is not running any infinite combos, it is not running any fast mana, but it is fast enough to get giant big dumb dudes out and hurt my opponents very, very quickly. And people have noted how scary it is to go up against that deck. So I know from experience, this deck is tangling with most people's strongest things and being fine. And there are players at my tournament that like playing Tutors infinite combos that I'm perfectly comfortable taking decks like Ruby up against, even in the tournament when money's on the line, and just managing the win with that. I'm okay with doing that. I don't have a perfect barometer for what's a 3 or a 4, but most players' barometer seems to be, does it have game changers in it, or does it not have game changers in it? And at that point, I just have to say that there's a whole 40-minute video, and there's a whole, like, literal essay that Gavin Verhey wrote about the bracket system that explains what it is. And, like, if you can read the rules to Magic the Gathering, you can read Gavin explaining the bracket system and the fact that intent goes as much into the power level of your deck as how many game changers you decided to put in. But again, we end up talking past each other because we don't like using the same language. I'm defending an idea, not realizing it's not the idea that's actually being attacked. And sometimes, whenever we are having these conversations, we're not working with the same bit of criterion. Somebody's talking about game changers, and that's their only way of articulating the bracket system, whereas I'm talking about intent, and we are now just talking past each other. So I guess as much as tutors and fast mana and all that stuff is not stuff I'm really keen on, the biggest thing I'm not keen on in this game, or really anything in nerddom in general, is us talking past each other instead of talking with each other. That's why I tried to start the last conversation with what's actually the problem. And I found that that tends to be a much more healthy way to go about things, but I still end up getting myself down in the muck and being a toxic person. So that's something I gotta get better at, and that is entirely on me. But hopefully this rant was coherent enough for some people to pay attention, and maybe it'll get like 3 views. Who knows? Let me know what you think in the comment section below, though. If you end up enjoying what I do over here, then maybe you'll enjoy checking me out over on Blue Sky. You also can subscribe to this channel if this incoherent rant was coherent enough to you, and I would greatly appreciate it. I've also got a Patreon and a fourth wall if you want to support me financially, though I'm not sure why any of you would do that. But I would definitely thank any of you who decided to. And actually, I also have streams that you can go check out Monday through Thursday. So yeah, there's where everything is, and thank you for sticking around with me for this very, very long video. Insert end video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravelern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Mark Anthony, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.